Lee, are you ready? All right. I will call the meeting to order. Its agenda, date, time, and location were properly announced. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. We will start off with the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of December 19th, 2022. Is there a motion to approve?
I make a motion.
Rini, is there a second?
Second. Give it to me.
Okay. Any corrections? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And payment of the bills, is there a motion to approve the amount of $1,082,786.61 for the month of December? Chris, is there a second? Amy, any questions?
I had no questions submitted.
I just had one thing. I just wondered what we did in the boys' locker room, the showers. Did we fully replace showers or something like that?
Yeah, so we had, they asked Mike, they had to be 50 years old. They're kind of a pedestal, and inside there they have mechanisms that weren't supported anymore, kind of rusted out. I think Mike and his crew did the best they could to keep them running for as long as they could. So we tore them out and through some plumbing, just have regular shower heads in there. As probably the least expensive way to be able to do shower removals if we need to. So,
In middle school or high school?
this is high school, yeah. I'm not sure middle schoolers shower. At school, at school. School right home, I meant at school.
All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have the cash summary.
I didn't have any questions, and I think everything looks pretty standard here, so if nobody has any questions, we're good.
And notification for donations.
We did not have any for probably the first month that I can remember in quite some time. It was a little quiet on that front.
Okay. And then next we have comments from the public. First, we have Blaine Warner and AED and EKG.
We're students.
Okay.
So Blaine did share with me a document he wanted to have me pass out to the board. I know this isn't an agenda item, but I thought with Blaine's work with the EMTs and the recent news with the cardiac arrest for the football player that had, I think Blaine just wanted to come on and say a couple things about it. So go ahead, Blaine.
Do I need to stand?
Oh,
No?
go ahead.
So my name is Blaine Warner. I worked for the Sheboygan Fire Department for 30 years as a paramedic in Random Lake, 45. And as they always say, never let a good tragedy go to waste. And this was actually this is actually a relatively good turnout for a tragedy. If anybody was home the last 3 weeks ago, every TV station was covering a person that Darnell Hamlin, I think that's his name, went into cardiac arrest after playing football. One of my things that I have done as a paramedic and EMT and an instructor, 23 years ago, I believe it was, I worked for Sheboygan Fire Department, and we raised like $90,000 to place an AED in all the schools in Sheboygan County, private, whatever it is. Some of those schools have had good use of those, and some people have actually been saved. Usually not the kids, but the grandparents, and I think one referee. One of the things that I learned and took an interest in when I was taking a paramedic refresher up in Manitowoc was one of the Manitowoc Fire Department was out on a call where they had a child under 15, I think it was. They worked for 2 hours, shocking him for 13 times to come back and be resuscitated. One of the things that they found at that time, and some of them might have been known beforehand, but I was just an idiot, didn't know that, was called the prolonged QT syndrome that a lot of kids have. 1 to 2,000 kids every year die of what's called from a prolonged QT syndrome that are school age. And there's an easy way to diagnose that, and that is through an EKG. I will send another one to you, and I would be happy to come to a board meeting where I can actually discuss this and turn some of this out. But doing an EKG for all students once, or especially athletes once, not every year that they come, but if it's in a freshman, to do an EKG to diagnose the potential of having a prolonged QT syndrome. It's not that, it's not that, it is rare, but by doing so, you potentially could save not only that child, but any other spouse or any other child with them, because usually it's congenital, and you could have people that in the family also have it. The one with the 13-year-old kid up in Manitowoc ended up going back to the family and finding out that the father and the brother also had prolonged QT syndrome. And many a times, that was many years ago, which they had to fight to have people get placed with an implanted defibrillator, because insurance companies always want to work with you, and it was very hard to get that covered. Nowadays, I believe it's more accessible. And I listened to a lot of talk show radios that next day, and they said, well, this is, and I'm going to say this, doesn't sound like actually what Mr. Hamilton had a cardiac arrest from. It just brought up the light of the potential. But if you've seen some of the basketball games where there's usually a lot, I think 5 in the last couple of years in college, were all filmed of these basketball players going down in cardiac arrest, having a defibrillator. The odds of happening this is you have a better chance of being struck by lightning than having this happen. I think you have a better chance of being struck by lightning twice if you took any of the mega numbers over the last couple of weeks. I don't know if anybody bought tickets, and if they did, you had a better chance of getting struck by lightning twice. I am looking for the potential of having somebody in this community not have that happen. I don't know if it could be getting together with Aurora and providing EKGs to these people. The fact is that if you do and you find it out, you're more than likely going to be helped in the family members, the other brothers, sisters, and potentially mother or father. I have a lot of this stuff, and one of the articles you will read, which I didn't get you, through WIAA, is recommendations for having an EKG available for all students. Also the other one I will send to Mike, went to the wrong type of a thing, but it's from Sun Cardiac Arrest. Of the 4 or 5 that I think I've been on, unfortunately, you had a child that died many, many years ago. You don't know if they had a prolonged QT because they were dead. You can only find out if they're alive to have what that EKG shows. So more than likely, those kids that 30 years ago I worked on, or 25 years ago, we don't know if they had that prolonged QT syndrome, but it was rare that this child would have had that on the basketball or baseball, whatever. I don't know what the cost of this is, and maybe you could be looking at the potential of having Aurora maybe do that. You work with it. If they can bring in an EKG machine, doing an EKG is very, very simple, and it's not and when a physician or a cardiologist would look at it, it's not something they have to spend 10 minutes looking at all the other stuff. It's very apparent when you have that prolonged QT syndrome. I'm a huge believer in AEDs, and I know the school has, I think, 3, maybe 4. Now you have the deputy officer. But only taking a defibrillator to the football games or sidelines, that needs to be taken to every practice, I believe, not mandatory. To cross country, to football, to basketball, to wrestling, and every other potential type of stressful situation that athletics happen. Defibrillators now can be bought at a reasonable rate, and training is very simple. I believe that this is something that the school board should look at, and potentially even get a hold of a cardiologist, maybe a children's or something like that, see if it's worth it, or just talk to Aurora. But if you could have your child be prevented from being struck by lightning, as they say, because there's a better chance of that, for $30 for the rest of his life, I bet you would take it. And I don't know, you know, if it has to be something, the money out of the personal people, personal families or something like that, or if you can get it funded or something like that, but, when this happened the other night, it sure brought to the attention of everybody the next day or two, and the headlines of every news, and still this past Sunday, he was actually back on the field. Now, I don't think his was on QT, but it just happened to be brought up that everybody's aware of it. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And I would be happy to give you more of a presentation at a village board, at a board meeting, but I'm also on the village board. If you would like one in 2 weeks or wait, I'd be more than happy to do it. Or your next meeting, if you can make it possible right at 6:30, so we can make a village board meeting after that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I don't know if I can take questions or not. You open? I would like to see Randall might be the first in the area to do it.
So
Set
you're
the
envisioning
standard.
like an EKG clinic or something?
It's just to put the
Here?
10 pads on you,
Yeah.
and it takes 5 minutes, or 5 seconds to actually do it.
Yeah.
And I think you could train your nurse up here, or like I say, the PA, is it a physician assistant that comes up here through Aurora, or anything like that. So if they bring the machine, I would think the cardiologist wouldn't take that costly to diagnose the prolonged QT. It's very evident when you see that.
I wonder why it's not required then for a physical.
It states in here that it's recommended but not required. And if you look at what happened this past week, the Green Bay Packers now got on the wagon and said they're gonna give $80,000 to schools north of there that don't have any AEDs. And I thought there wasn't a school around that didn't have AEDs. We're lucky to have 4 of them, but it shows the importance of them and the importance of doing that right away. Have it right there. Thank you.
Aurora already does the concussion screening, right?
They do have it, and this one recommends a very thorough history of any cardiac events in the family's history. There's a 12-question thing. And if you have any, if you have a policy, any child that would happen to pass out at any reason, like especially in athletics, they would be required to have an EKG before they can come back. And that would be a policy that I don't think is bad, because nobody should be passing out, even in stressful settings like that. You have a 16-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 12-year-old that passes out in gym, there's a reason.
And just so the board knows, if you pass out at school, we automatically call it. So that's,
And unfortunately, we can't use an EKG that they can, right. Thank you.
And then we have Jeff Turnus, soccer.
Yeah, Jeff Turnitz, Random Lake Soccer Club president, just asking for the board members vote to look at number 6, the combination of the Ozaki and Random Lake high school soccer teams. I think it's time with low enrollments. It's always, every year it's just getting tougher, no matter what sport you're in. How do we form a team? So I think soccer could be a great pilot program for this, for the future. One great experience that I had was U14, my daughter Elena, we couldn't form a girls soccer team for club. And we talked to Ozaki. Ozaki took us in. It was an amazing experience. We won some games. We didn't win everything. We didn't win a championship, but the girls made great friends, and the relationships that they made were awesome. So I think there's a lot said for that as well. You know, it's not all about winning, but working with others. So I think it's going to be a great pilot program, and that's all I got. No, yeah, well, Andy was still coach. I think with the great, and that's what made it work. 2 great people working together. One great person working together. And I think we got the right people in place. As I know people in Random Lake, I know people in Ozaki, and right now I think it's in place to make it work. So.
Thank you. So then that does take us to the boys soccer.
So you have, Brandon had planned on being here. If he didn't hear, there was a little car accident on 144 on Thursday, between him and another staff member, and totaled both vehicles, and he's out. He is getting a new vehicle today, so he apologized for not being here. But Andy is here from Northern Ozaki, Activities Director, and the document you have in front of you here is really how the agreement would go. If you go to the back page, you can kind of see where the enrollment has been and where we're projecting it for next year. If you go to number 7, you can kind of see how we have really come to a nice agreement that the head coaches, we're going to have head coaches from both schools, because we think it's important to make sure that we have that representation from both schools. We're going to split reffing. And we said that we will take on 75% of the transportation, and Northern Ozaki is going to take on 75% of the uniforms that we have to do because of our busing. So kind of using our strengths in that way. So last week, this went to Northern Ozaki and was approved by their board. So I'm asking for the approval for this co-op starting next year. And although this is required to be a 2-year commitment, it's something I think, like Jeff had said, we want to continue doing this, giving our kids opportunities and helping them keep making memories in the sports that they want to participate in.
Is there a motion? Katie,
second.
Rini, second. Any questions or discussion?
Were people who had concerns about some of those, right? Like, so, are there concerns? Like, what are the concerns? What are the downsides? Upside, kind of. How did it work out in the past?
This is, so we have done this once in the past with cross-country. And that worked well, but then we separated for different reasons. So it was a 2-year commitment, the 2-year commitment went through, and then after the 2 years, both programs kind of stayed on their own. There is some discussions about programs such as that maybe we will be looking at in the future, bringing together as we see numbers. So I think it's a different time than it was back then.
So for sure it will stay for 2 years.
That's a WIA requirement.
It's a rolling 2-year agreement that you have to reapply for, or resubmit your staying with the co-op, and then it's still another 2 years on that.
Who's the head coach?
How did you, I think we said we have 2 head coaches, right?
A coach from each school, Josh Wood from Ozaki would stay on, he was our coach. We had to cancel our boys season last fall for lack of enrollment. And Josh was our coach before that. He has remained active in trying to keep the boys interested in soccer, and will be coming on staff from our next year.
So those would be things we'd want the adults to talk about, how that goes forward. So
And who would host, like if it's a home game?
Random Lake is the host school for games and practices. And WIA coordination, it's Random Lake goes on.
Does the enrollment bump you up?
We will be bumped up a division in soccer for the sake of the playoffs, but our belief on at least the Ozaki side is we have not been competitive at all in the regular season, let alone the postseason. This would give the boys a more successful season. We have a very difficult boys soccer conference that we are part of. Washboard, Christian Lutheran, and Pittsburgh have been the state the last 2 years together, and there's only 14 that go to state. And Schwartz Christian Lutheran won 2 years ago, so we have a very difficult conference. I believe Random found out this year how difficult it is to play with low numbers. We have been struggling with numbers, playing with as little as 12 people for the last couple of years. So we're looking to make a more positive experience during the regular season for boys. I think there's also a benefit to having a larger team. The younger, less experienced guys could get a little less playing time against those strong teams, create better player safety, that type of thing. And then if we get numbers into the low 20s, we start looking for JV opportunities 3 or 4 a year to let the younger, less experienced guys develop on a JV, from a JV standpoint. Not a full JV schedule, but a few JV opportunities.
We have Mike here from the coaching staff. Is there anything you want to add about what was said here, Mike?
Well, I mean, I think it's something that we've talked about for a couple of years now. And we've seen it. We've tried to play with 14, 15 kids, and you're one starter away from your season being horrible. It's one injury. That's all it takes with the numbers that we have. And it's happened to us the last 3 years. We were potentially a state contender 2 years ago. And our main center mid went down in practice before the season even started. The following year, we had our center mid go down again, different individual. And then last year, we had 2 players within the second week. We had 2 players down, and one we lost 4 games into the season. So, playing too much, not getting the proper rest, not getting the proper breaks in the games. And quite honestly, having kids on the field that if this was a bigger school, they wouldn't get on a varsity team, and we're throwing those kids on a varsity team. And it's not fair to them to ask them to do that. And they do, they step up every year, but they're smaller. You have freshmen going up against seniors that are twice their size. Soccer's a physical sport. Anybody that says it's not, has not seen me game of soccer. So just having the numbers, being able to give kids the breaks, having the backup positions that you can give those kids the breaks is important.
Better practice quality as well.
Questions or discussion? We do have a motion. All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Couple signatures.
Yeah,
Get
actually,
it back, or you want to do the?
why don't you give it to me? I'll get the signatures and I'll get it to you. Okay.
And then we'll get if it's been approved by the conference, we just need the signature from the commissioner. And then we'll send it to WIA.
Perfect. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
So,
And next we have referendum discussion.
Yeah, so Nate's here, and if everybody got a chance, I really want to shout out to Bray. This is something we're going to see every month. Sometimes we'll have some really cool updates. Sometimes it'll be, we did a lot of meetings and we did some touring, which I'm just preparing you next month isn't going to probably have as much cool stuff as this, but Nate might be wrong. I'm hoping. But this is a way we're going to just stay on top of all the things that are going on. So if you get a chance, read it. There's been some really cool things. The finance side, Patty and I have been working our tails off since Christmas. In here, we talked to Kevin Mullen, but our interest rate for our borrowed money is almost a full point below what we thought it would be. We were projecting a 4.75. We ended up locking in at 3.81. So saving over $4 million over the life of this. And on top of what we're doing on the other end, it's we've hit a really nice sweet spot with this. So good things are happening there. The one thing I asked Nate to be here for is as we go forward, we have 2 ways that we can do our construction. And we've talked a little bit about this, and Nate, I want you to make sure that I'm saying this right when I'm done here. There's 2 ways. We can either design this and send it out to bid, and as we send it out to bid, we have different parameters from different contractors, and then they give us the best price. Or we can go and interview contractors now to help us do this side by side. And I've been very clear, my bias is I feel we get a better bang for our buck if we use all the information we know to design, but keep the contractors out until the end and the design is done. Because we will get the pricing that's going on at that time instead of pricing in the prices that it is now with the possibility of recession and things like that. But we're at a point right now where we have to make a decision, and this isn't an approval, but it is a blessing, and we've done this in the past, of are we going to go out to bid, or are we gonna have a construction manager brought in now? So Nate, to help them, we're gonna do that.
No, I think you said it perfectly. I think the reason for bringing this conversation back is, one, timing wise, as we discussed last month, that if we were to go down the hard bid route, we would still pre-qualify contractors. We would ask them to submit qualifications, familiar with this, right? We want to make sure that if someone is being brought in knows how to build schools, knows how to work within a school environment, things like that. And those questions honestly would be very similar questions that we would ask now, whether we would go into construction manager or hard bid. But so the same process still occurs. It's just when are we bringing the contractor? So I think Mike, you said it great. The one piece of this, right, is that we do have a lot of work inside the existing facility, and we do feel strongly that we can do this in the hard bid environment. And I don't have any concerns about that. But if there was any concerns about sequencing and phasing and keeping everybody on track and on schedule, it can be a little bit tricky when you're working in so many different areas of the building. But as I shared with the phasing plan last month, we feel confident that it can be done. We are just, it's going to be interesting to see how contractors choose to bid with that. So I really don't have any concerns either way, which way the district decides to go.
So we're looking for a blessing from this group to say yes, one way or the other, so the core planning team can go forward. Rini, you're on that team. Anything you want to add to this?
It's a great team. So far, the meetings have been really interesting. And we did discuss this fully in those meetings. And I think Chuck and I both were in agreement about giving the blessing to put it out to bid, as long as we're pre-qualifying.
Does anyone have a problem with that? If it is okay with that?
Okay, thank you. It's nice to be blessed on Monday, isn't it?
And we're off to the building report.
Yes, you're good. Yeah, thanks, bud.
All right, major diagnostic benchmarks.
Here, we're gonna try something different with our building reports. We've gotten feedback that you can't hear me talking. I'm gonna give you a mic.
I promise I won't sing.
Should be on.
Okie dokie. Mid-year diagnostic benchmark assessments have begun. The window will close in a couple of weeks. That's the information that we do for kindergarten through 8th grade every year to make sure that we're not missing anybody falling through the cracks as far as growth. I'm also happy to report that the access tests have left the building. Our students have been tested per requirements this year, and that one is checked off the list. Something that Susan and I can both talk to a little bit. We have both gone through the Blue Ribbon School of Excellence reviews, and we are working with a woman by the name of Jane Elsperman. Both of our on-site observations, I think, went very, very well. We haven't achieved Blue Ribbon yet, but I am confident that we will by the end of this school year. So we've very, very good reports from Jane. She's very enthusiastic about who we are, what we're doing, and things are looking really good.
All right, so middle school, high school teams we've sent a middle school team of 6 teachers and a high school team of 6 teachers. We've got one more high school team of 6 teachers that'll be going in February. We're sending them to see Adlai Stevenson High School in Lincolnshire. It's down by the Chicago area. That was the birthplace of the PLC process, and they are in I'm looking at Travis, 15, 20 years they've been doing PLC. And now, though, they've spent the last good decade also embedding evidence-based grading as a part of their PLC process. So we've been sending teams down there to learn from them, learn with them, watch the PLC process as they're doing it by department. So it's been really great learning experience, and we have one more team that's going to go in February, and then looking to send one more team in October, trying to get every teacher out there to take a look to see the PLC process with evidence-based grading together. So really, really impactful there. 8th grade field trip to Lakeshore Technical College. Last week they went to Explore Your Future. This is the second year that we had the 8th grade go, and really an unbelievable experience again for all the students. They came back really talking very positively about the speaker presentations and the different things that they learned there. So moving on to strong culture. So high school winter play, back to the 80s. Not dating myself, but I love the 80s channel. So really looking forward to this one.
Like Wang Chung.
So that's this weekend. We'll be doing a preview for the middle school. They will become on Thursday, coming to watch the preview with opening it up to some of our community, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So come on out and watch really a great play. Quarterly high school Ramway Roundup. So each quarter, the high school does a Ramway Roundup. That's led by Sid Lucas and his Ramway team. And we did a lip sync battle, and it was really quite fun. We had 3 or 4 different student groups that were up there lip syncing along with 3 staff. So it was really quite fun. So Natalie Weeks, Sid Lucas, Jake Frias, really let her rip up there. So it was a great time. But it was a good way to kick off the quarter very positively together as a school. And then the middle school, they finished their quarter, the semester, with our Student of the Quarter Assembly. That's where we like to celebrate, acknowledge growth in students in a variety of areas across all the classes, core and electives. So we held that in the auditorium. And then same thing? Okay. So monthly theme, middle school and elementary, we have a monthly theme, and this month it's knowledge. It's about kind of, you want to seek to learn. If you have questions, you seek to learn. Whatever it is, you're seeking to gain more knowledge, so that way maybe you can form an opinion or just find out more, learn something new. So that's how we're approaching that. And then we're putting in a service project, Souls for Africa Shoe Drive. We are doing that with conjunction of NHS, National Junior Honor Society, with Nikki Donahue up at the high school. So both high school and middle school are doing the shoe drive as well. Is the elementary part of that shoe drive? I didn't think so. Okay. And then moving on to strong community connections, Rams versus Cancer fundraiser. So again, led by Nikki Donahue and NHS, January 26th, 27th basketball games. That's when they'll be doing the collecting money for the fundraiser to then donate to Pink Heels of Sheboygan County. So it was really a great turnout last year. So we're looking for a great turnout this year as well. And then one thing I did want to add on there that I didn't get on there, but I had the privilege of sitting in and listening to speaker at the middle school. Debbie Poole had John Frausto come in, and he spoke to the 6th grade about investing. And I have to say, it was really well done. The 6th graders, I think they knew more about investing than what I thought I did, but so it was really engaging. And he's going to be coming back to work with them as they're going to start to make investments. So they're going to be acting like they're building their portfolio. So that's being done with the 6th grade.
And finally, after not being able to do this for a couple years due to COVID, we have partnered back up again with Home Depot, and our 4Kers took a field trip to Home Depot. It was rescheduled from prior to Christmas. We all know how the weather was then. And they were able to, with Home Depot employees and volunteers, make projects with the Home Depot employees. It was really fun.
All right, and so then I just wanted to do some student acknowledgements. First, we have Battle of the Books. Didn't get that one on there, but we're doing Battle of the Books finals this week. So we have a 4th grade team, 5th grade team. seventh grade team, eighth grade team, and a high school team, all in the final battle this week. So that's pretty fun. The high school team is hoping to be able to advance on to the next level after this. So stay tuned. We'll see how they do. And then middle school spelling bee. So we had that last week as well. And we had Lena, eighth grader, came out in first. Kaylin, also an eighth grader, in second place. And then Chase was third place, and he is a sixth grader. So we had a lot of kids. It was a well-fought bee, and we wish Lena luck as she moves on to the county level. And then high school students earning MOS certification. So these are students that come out of Mr. Will's classes, and every year, just phenomenal work that he does with getting students with certified with Excel and Outlook. And just wanted to do the shout outs here for Dakota, Hallie, Mackenzie, Tara, and Torin with their certifications, but also an extra shout out for Jolie for Word Expert. She's the second person to earn that expert certification at Random Lake. So well done to these students as well. Yeah, I would say the teachers they've worked really hard through the initial challenges and are feeling now in a better spot and feeling like they're moving along. I mean, we've got room to grow yet, and we're still working to, tweak and fine and stuff, but I would say definitely all in all, coming a long way and seem more positive.
I think the big turn is when Susan and the whole team found a way to show the staff what it looks like in their area. So those groups that are going down to Illinois, to Adelaide Stevenson, math teachers are hanging out with math teachers, social studies with social studies. So when you get to see it in your content area, I think there's been a lot of clarity added just by being able to do that. And that's why such an investment has been put in. We have the ESSER funds to be able to do it, so it's a really good time to be.
Thank you. No board committee reports tonight. And that takes us to report cards and ACT reports.
Perfect. So I'm going to invite Travis Olson up here, who is our language arts teacher extraordinaire, but also our DAC and assessment coordinator, to talk a little bit about our report cards and then also about some of our ACT pieces. So as you know, one of the yearly requirements, if you want to pull up the report cards to start with, we have to do a report about the report cards. We'll start off with that, and then we'll talk about ACT. And I don't want to steal all your thunder, Travis, so I'm going to stop there, and then I can fill in anywhere from that. So,
Probably elementary, so just go up to the back of the district. Okay. Good evening. Last time I was supposed to present, I was ill, so I think I sent a Loom video or something. So it's nice to actually be here tonight. I'm sure most of you heard about this before. Every year, I want to point out, can you scroll down a little bit, Kim? Every year, these pieces of the pie change. So it's a bit of a moving target for us, meaning maybe that achievement score, that maybe is a bigger piece this year than it was last year. So DPI is trying to calibrate this to be as accurate as possible. So hopefully it starts staying consistent soon. So really what we're looking at are these 4 areas, and there's only 3 in elementary, because I'm guessing we didn't have enough of a board file at the time. So the 4 areas are achievement, which is how students are doing compared to state benchmarks. How many kids are proficient or advanced compared to basic or needed support. One of the other areas is growth. So that's how they're doing from 3rd grade forward to 4th grade forward to 5th grade forward, or to 8th grade to 7th grade, 8th grade forward, or in high school from the Aspire, which is now gone. Now we have pre-ACT to ACT junior year. So it's looking at the individual students' growth on these series of assessments from year to year. And then on track to graduation, as you can see, is absenteeism, attendance,
the third grade ELA. And then the target group outcome is the lowest quarter of struggling students. Or for us, it's a cell size of 20. So there must have been a grade level that didn't have more than 40 kids. If it makes up more than half, then it's not counted. So that replaced the old closing gap score. So they used to look at demographics, special education students, socioeconomic status, different races, different genders, and compare how they're doing compared to other groups. That's been replaced by this now, because they've said it doesn't matter what label a kid has, every kid should be growing. So this has replaced that gap closing score. Then as you can see, everything is compared to the state. We're similar to how we did last year, only a few points off, up or down. The score of 70 exceeds expectations, and we're close or above that in all 4 schools. So I don't know. So this is
Elementary, you want to talk over to middle school?
elementary, yeah. Middle school is our school that is exceeding expectations. This is from the 21-22 data. So they have achieved the rare albatross in math of having high achievement and high growth. So that's kind of the goal for all of our areas, is that we're getting more and more kids to be proficient or advanced, but even the ones who are proficient or advanced are also growing. That's kind of what that growth score shows. So no matter where a kid was in 6th grade, let's say, by the time they've gotten to 8th grade, they've grown. So even if they started high achieving, they've shown growth. So that's what that achievement versus growth is. And as you can see, above state average achievement in English and math, and then way above average in math for growth. That's incredible. And we're pretty fortunate with our attendance at every level. So that's nice to see compared to what some schools are doing. All right, and then for the high school, you can see we're above average in achievement, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. We're close to being there in math for growth, and our ELA needs to work on growth. We've talked about this at the high school BLT for the last 2 years, trying to diagnose why are students not growing on this test as much as maybe we'd like them to be. We're trying to work through that. We're hoping some of the new grade book, the focus on assessments for those areas in the grade book are going to help identify maybe on a more individual level who needs more help to grow in those areas. Then again, we're looking good at the high school in absenteeism and graduation, and our target groups are doing okay as well.
Sure, you can pop on the district.
Yeah. And then the district is just the mean of the 3 schools. And again, 70.0 exceeds expectations, and we're 69.9. So close. Right there. Okay. Must have been a 9.4. 9.94. So same thing. We're above average in a lot, and then I compared us to local schools, to more local districts, not the whole state, and we're in a good position locally, almost everywhere in every measure.
So one of the things I asked Travis to do along with this is, the nice thing is our ACT scores aren't a moving target. This has been moving, and that little pie graph, if you up on top, if you scroll down a little bit, they keep changing those numbers, so we never know how they're going to calculate, but ACT. So I know earlier in the year we shared how in the conference we were the 3rd highest ACT. There were some questions like, hey, how have we looked in the last few years? So if you, I don't know which chart you want first, Travis, to talk a little bit about the ACT results for high school.
Can I ask a question though?
Sure.
Because we lost a star from last year and for the district and for the elementary. Why, do you know why that might happen?
Well, for the district, it's by a 1/10 of a point. So, that's just a mathematical thing. And the other school was the elementary that we lost. But again, it was only by
The thing with the elementary is that 35% per year is what, there's a calculation change. If you are below 35%, your achievement counts as a higher grade. If you are under 35% growth, counts as a higher grade. And we keep fluctuating back and forth between those two numbers. So it depends on where we are in the result calculation, because our numbers are very, very close to it.
That's what's so difficult about the moving target, is we're never quite certain from one year to the next what's gonna be the measure, how big of a piece of the pie it's gonna be.
Our goal is just to always have as much growth as possible and the highest achievement. And just allow the work that we're doing around PLCs is around that work of making sure that high expectations and rigor are in all of our classes.
This is good. So, you shared this with them before, or you just shared it?
I did privately once before. yes.
Okay, yeah, so now the scores are published, so this is public knowledge. So this is beyond just the conference even, this is schools in our area, Plymouth, Woken Falls, those are larger schools. And this is last spring's ACT results, so we are third in the entire area here. So we're pretty proud of this at the high school for sure. And a lot of it is our PLCs working together, identifying the key skills and trying to respond when students aren't finding success right away on those skills. So the next slide shows the variability over the last few years. So we are that dashed line. I tried to make it as clear as possible. So we've consistently been in the top 5 of those 12 schools, I think, on the last chart. For the last 5 or 6 years, I look at that. But this shows kind of precipitous drops the last few years from some of those higher achieving districts. We've been very consistent, right? We're probably one of the more consistent performances on there over the last 7 years. Just when I started. So this follows my time. I'm not taking responsibility. Yeah, you can see COVID hit some schools hard. Every school I've talked to, including Stevenson down in Illinois, they're saying that time had much more of a detrimental effect on the kids than we, as the adults, kind of guess. But I think this shows that we didn't make a big drop. We did a good job of supporting our kids and keeping them learning through that spring. So paying off now as those kids are going through our system, to be tested well.
What is the
Okay, Lakeland Beulah. So each
That
line is a different school.
It's up.
Yeah.
It had a huge spike in 2021.
Yeah.
And then a huge decline.
And one of the things you'll see, and I think the piece that's good for us is the smaller the classes, the more, it'll be more erratic.
Right, one
Because,
kid can make a huge.
One kid can make a big difference one way or the other. And even with our class sizes, be able to stay consistent through COVID and all those other pieces that just shows some of the work with that. But yeah, the smaller the school, the more you're gonna see that.
So is Random's current 21 and Kohler's 20.9? Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, what is that what it is?
Yeah, it's 2/10 of a difference right now.
Okay.
But I mean, they were at 25 3 years ago. I mean, they were they were renowned around the state. They're scrambling now to figure out how to respond.
So if you were to look at those other reports, like the district report, would we be equal, we're third in the district or, state here, those 12 schools that you had on here, would we be in the same spot if we were looking at those report cards? Like, do those report cards have a reflection on this, or is
This is the achievement part of the report card. So it's 1/4 of the pie. The growth is not quite here. So this is just the achievement piece. We have one of the higher achievement scores in the high school at least. Middle school as well, I mean, that's one of the highest middle school and high school achievement scores.
The same population being tested twice.
Or in fourth grade, you test, or-
And that's one of the issues around like report cards and everything else is different assessments are different ways of rating a very complex thing called school. So it's great not to celebrate one too much. When we have good things, we celebrate. But like, okay, we're doing well here, but this is good, here's a place we can improve on. And yeah, so it's many different ways. You get the US News and World Report that comes out and they just do it on how many AP. We usually do pretty well on that one. But then if you go to like niche.com, all of a sudden they say we're a B minus. So it's like everyone has their own way of rating the school. And we just try to keep it as many ways out there as possible.
Then in the spring, we'll look at our redefining ready scores, which is our kind of own internal report card that's not just academics, but other career readiness indicators as well.
Now that you've shared. So now that you shared the bar graph here that you had prior with the multiple schools on the ACT score number third, will that be shared with the district or do you already share that with?
We can now put it out onto, we can put it on social media and stuff like that, so yeah. When I first shared it with you, it was somebody else's that I'm like, oh, hey, look where we ended up, this is ours now, so we can.
Do we know anything that's gonna be, subject areas, like the subject of ELA and math? Get together and talk about kind of those ratings, especially like all the way elementary, middle, high school, how we're projecting them through, like are there meetings like that? Professional development days and stuff?
Yeah, once a month, basically, we have a K-12 vertical PLC. So it's another PLC, but it's not just high school, it's K through 12 ELA meeting. It's K through 12.
Elementary school teachers who teach, like, are they differentiated into disciplines? Not much, right? They are represented in those PLCs, so people.
And that's the whole concept around the PLC is, for too long, schools are, first grade picked whatever they wanted to teach, second grade taught whatever. There were different languages being spoken, and it's tough as we're trying to create a system around what's taught on first grade, works in second grade, third grade, and it keeps going up. We have a general agreement on what are the expectations, how we're gonna grade it, how those grades are gonna come back. So this work that's being done, we have to meet at grade level, but then we also need to know what the grades are doing here so we can make sure that we're pushing it. And as we're doing that, we have to look at these and is this work that we've identified as important, is it actually coming up this way? So this is the we have that continuous improvement.
Not longitudinal, they're growth flow back here. That's what we're looking at our whole scoring system. So
That's usually something we report to this group on. How much growth have we seen in kids? We test them 2 or 3 times in fall, winter, and spring to show what their growth is. And that's a much better, that has much more impact on instruction than this stuff does. Really.
any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Joyce.
Next we have open enrollment spaces for 23-24 school year. This is something we do
Every year, yep, this is something we need to do by law. As you can see, we do not have any open spaces for special ed for next year.
Okay, and we need to take action on that.
I believe it has to be approved, right? Yes.
Is there a motion to approve? Do we have separate ones or just that, because it's just special ed that we.
Special ed enrollments, I think.
Okay. To designate 0 across the board for open enrollment. and no limits on the return. Rini, is there a second? Katie, any questions or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We do have a staff resignation with Bria Weicker. Is there a motion to accept her resignation with thanks for her service over the last year and a half? Chris, is there a second? Amy, any questions or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The audit.
Gave you some wonderful reading material again. We'll discuss it again next month. If you have any questions, same findings again, segregation of duties, we're gonna get that. Let me know if you have questions ahead of time.
All right, sounds good.
So next month's meeting, we're approving this or?
We don't really do that, it's just informational. So,
It's fun reading. Is that your first one? Oh, it's exciting.
I come with a highlighter and post-it notes if you want to mark it out.
okay, the 22-23 budget, any updates there?
I'm just doing it quarterly, and I would have gotten the first quarter and the second quarter. The second quarter is probably a better snapshot of where we are right now, the ones ending December 31st. We're pretty much on track everywhere. We should be at 50% now. We got 6 months in, and I would say that we're trending pretty close to where we trended last year. I don't see any areas of concern right now.
Anyone have any questions on that?
I wondered what a couple things were. What is youth options? That one, the budget really increased a lot since last year.
So youth options is our students going out and getting experience. So in most cases, youth options doesn't cost anything, but in Ozaki County, it does have a cost. So we have a couple of students that had placements at careers there that we had to pay for. So that was where the increase came from. But it's our ability to get our students out and having those work-based learning opportunities in the career fields of their choices.
Well, actually, that's not that account. That 387, it's called youth options, but
What was it?
that's where, on the revenue limit worksheet that we got, that's for the, tuition.
Oh, the tuition, okay, yeah.
That's why it went up so much. That's where that surprise came when I told you at budget time. Last year, we paid 43,000 for private school. This year, that payment went up to 125. So they gave it to me in the revenue, but they also tell me where to put it in the expenses.
They call it youth options?
That's the name of it right now. That's the category of the function for the object.
And that's the money we're paying other schools for students that left our district?
You're not paying it directly. That's all part of my year end, my June 30th equation. So they tell me, they give it to you on the revenue limit worksheet. But they also tell you on that revenue limit worksheet where you have to expense it. So we don't get any money. It's just that's the amount of money that's being given and taken away for us to pay for our students that are in private school.
Private school. So we can't control that
We have
line.
no control over that. I found that out October 15th.
She's still salty about it. I don't know that.
And that's why it jumped. I wasn't expecting it. And I just think you get such a false narrative that it looks made our revenue look higher, but we are not getting that money. But it does inflate our revenue.
And what is the interfund transfer to?
That's our open enrollment.
Okay, so those are students that left our district.
That what?
Students that have left our district, or students coming into our district.
That payment is for what we have to pay. It's also part of my June 30th final journal entry that the state will let me know for sure what we're paying for students that are attending other schools, our students attending other schools. We will also get a payment in, but not much.
I have a question just for sure. So most of these, the percent of the budget that's been spent is pretty similar, but some of them are a lot different. There's nothing in there.
There's different expenses and different, I mean, you might not have had that expense last year. I mean, so everything's, I'm trending pretty well.
And I would say that some of the things that I look here that are 100%, those are things that have been paid in full. So building rental, that's that big paid in full, it would go to 200%.
One time payment.
Yeah, for first comp, that payment was the 100% payment for that, so.
Yeah.
And what is Fund 50 again? What is that cover? Food service, okay. So we must have paid off equipment, the maintenance of equipment is over 100% this year.
Oh, yeah, I think, what did she had a
Any other questions? Takes us to informational items.
Just real quick, as far as the school board elections, we have, our board members will be running unopposed, so we will be keeping the same, 7 of you here, so that's always, it's always nice when we know who we're gonna be with next year, so we know the transition and all this stuff. So, congratulations, and we have to go through the actual election part of it, but it's, I forget, Rini, right? It's you and Chuck, right? So, thank
Yeah, we
goodness.
definitely can't let them
Yeah,
go.
especially since
They're
they're on
all
the core planning team, that would have been a big one, so, that worked out just beautifully, and, the other piece real quick is, just an update, been doing a lot of work with DPI around the Wisconsin Career Standards, and it's been great, even today, we were talking about how some of the things we're seeing at the state and how we can start bringing those into discussions with our kids, as we talk about ways to, impact our students and bring real life into our classes from elementary all the way up to high school. It's really been a really cool experience so far. So thanks for allowing me to do that and keep moving us forward.
Any questions? All right, this takes us to closed session. The board will go into closed session as permitted under Wisconsin State Statutes,
Thanks for
Chapter
coming, guys.
19, Section 1985-1F to discuss a student matter. Is there a motion to go into closed session? Chris, is there a second? Amy? This requires a roll call vote. Katie? I vote yes. Chris? We are in closed session. We will not be taking any action